Today's video is one of the most terrifying bear attacks in recorded history. A desperate and malnourished bear who broke into a home in the middle of the night to attack and eat a young man, and his horrifying last stand against the man-eating bear. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the tragic bear attack of Colin McClelland. Welcome to Final Affliction. Today's story not only displays the overwhelming strength of the American black bear, but also shows how swiftly humans can fall off the top of the food chain when throwing caution to the wind or when in the wrong circumstance. This story takes place in Whoa Mountain, Colorado, located in Isabel National Forest. This area not only features stunning natural scenery and breathtaking arrangements of gorgeous green landscapes, but it's also home to a thriving and diverse ecosystem of animals such as mule deer, elk, bighorn sheep, mountain goats, and wild turkeys, the population of which are kept in check by fierce predatory animals such as mountain lions and, of course, the dangerous and highly resourceful American black bear. The American black bear is a truly fascinating and frightening creature. Black bears are easily distinguishable by their blackish fur. These creatures can grow up to 6 feet long and weigh 600 pounds on average. However, some American black bears get as big as 900 pounds. Even though they aren't the biggest animals out there, black bears make up for it in speed and agility. Black bears are normally quite fast, running at speeds up to 30 miles an hour. In short bursts, they can even reach a speed of 35 miles per hour. Additionally, black bears are excellent climbers and can easily scale trees, something grizzly bears have difficulty doing and polar bears cannot do at all. Though black bears are smaller and not as strong as grizzly bears, their physical prowess is still quite impressive. They can easily flip a 325-pound rock with one paw, and they're not only very dexterous but also quite resourceful. In fact, they're even known for being able to open door latches and climb over steel gates. The average American black bear has a bite force of around 800 psi. Although this is weaker than the grizzly bear, it's about 2 times stronger than the bite force of a male mountain lion. Not only are black bears incredibly strong, but their teeth can grow up to 2.5 inches long. Combined with their razor-sharp claws, their teeth, and their powerful bite, black bears are without question highly dangerous animals. They can swing their claws at a force of 980 pounds, which is almost 7 times stronger than the average man, and more than enough to kill you with a single swipe. 24-year-old Colin McClelland was a lumberjack. His job entailed camping out in the open wilderness as he chopped up trees and harvested timber. This job inevitably put him at risk of encountering the plethora of predatory wildlife the mountain was so famous for, including black bears. The outdoors ran in Colin's family. His father was a licensed outfitter in Colorado for 13 years, so it only made sense that Colin would follow in his footsteps. For several years, he had been setting up camp on Whoa Mountain to harvest timber from the nearby timber stands, but lately he'd been having more and more bear problems. 3 years prior to the horrific incident that occurred, he even called the Colorado Division of Wildlife when a bear broke into his camper and ate all of his food. In fact, Colin's father, who was a lumberjack, once had a black bear sneak up on him as he slept and licked insect repellent off his face. At first, the black bears were scared of Colin, but as the years went by and as he frequented his logging camps more and more, they soon began to grow worryingly used to his presence. Inevitably, Colin would have multiple encounters with black bears. It even got to a point where he asked local authorities for help, but sadly, his complaints were either brushed aside or ignored, and a year later, a horrible tragedy would befall him. Most black bear attacks are not territorial in nature. Rather, male black bears go on the hunt to fatten up in preparation for the long and arduous hibernation. Bears who are desperate enough will eat whatever is available to them, whether it be rodents, insects, or berries. Even humans aren't off the menu for these opportunistic animals. If you ever find yourself in a situation being attacked by a black bear, it's important to always remember that your only chance of survival is to fight back. Attempting to run away, more often than not, results in being tackled and pinned to the ground by the faster and much more agile bear. Try your best to focus your punches and kicks on its eyes, ears, and snout, and pray that it isn't desperate enough as to ignore the risks of injuries in favor of a potential meal. Black bears that find food without being scared away may come back for more, desensitizing themselves to humans in the process. If this occurs frequently enough, it can lead to conflicts, particularly during hyperphagia, a late summer feeding frenzy where bears try to consume 20,000 calories a day in preparation for hibernation. Bears who lose fear of humans are also called nuisance bears. These nuisance bears often include subadult male bears who have recently left their mothers and still need to learn how to find food. Additionally, female bears with young cubs also fall into this category. In many states, once a bear is identified as a nuisance bear, that bear is killed or relocated far away in an effort to prevent the bear from returning. Unlike most bear attack victims, who are for the most part inexperienced or ignorant of the bear's behavior, Colin knew perfectly well what draws this ferocious beast. He spared no effort in hiding any crumbs or pieces of food lying around his camp, storing them far away to ensure no unwanted visitors come prowling about in the middle of the night in search of a meal. He even carried around his trusty rifle, which he hoped, if push comes to shove, would prove a valuable asset that could save his life. Colin wasn't feeling all that well in the days prior and was taking some potent flu medications in order to recover. Cutting down pine trees is exhausting work, but being sick on top of that made it even harder. To make matters worse, Colin has had to sleep on the roof of his RV as black bears had become increasingly aggressive and would attempt to break into his van in search of food on several occasions. On the fateful night of August 13, 1993, Colin was feeling particularly sick. He couldn't stomach the idea of spending yet another night on the roof of his RV out in the cold, and so, against his better judgment, he decided he would spend the night inside his RV. Unfortunately, the scent of the meal he had prepared before going to sleep had caught the attention of a black bear that was nearby. This particular black bear was different. It was almost hibernation season, and the 240-pound bear was starving because it had little luck bulking up in preparation for the winter. This not only made it desperate, but also made it highly aggressive and willing to take risks most black bears would shy away from. Finally, the bear arrived at Colin's camp. Wasting no time, it quickly began rummaging and sniffing around in search of the alluring aroma which had caught its attention. Eventually, it came to realize that the scent it had picked up was seeping from Colin's RV. The beast spared no effort, immediately lunging at the RV's door and beginning to claw and smash against it. Colin was jolted awake, only to see that the only barrier keeping him safe was being torn to shreds as it bent under the overwhelming force of the bear's mighty claws. He knew that the door wouldn't keep the bear at bay for very long, and so he reached for his rifle and fired from inside, hoping to hit the bear and scare it off before it inevitably broke inside. Unfortunately, this had the exact opposite effect, as it only served to further anger the bear, which now began pushing against the RV's door at a much more violent and rapid rate. Colin stood frozen in shock when the door was suddenly knocked open, completely unable to come up with an idea that would save him. The bear's terrifying gaze briefly met Colin's only for a split second before the violent and starving animal suddenly bounced, instantly beginning its assault by viciously and savagely clawing at helpless Colin, who was in no shape to ward off his attacker. But even if he was, it was unlikely a healthy, full-grown male could withstand an onslaught even from a smaller and malnourished black bear. And so, as Colin did what little he could do to fight off his attacker, his body finally gave up fighting as it crumbled onto the ground beneath the weight of the mighty bear. As Colin sat there, likely screaming in excruciating amounts of pain, the bear gave him no chance chance of recuperating as it quickly delivered a bite so powerful it shattered Colin's skull, quickly and brutally ending his life. Colin McClelland was dead, but the tragedy was far from over. When Colin's friends and loved ones went up to check on him as they knew he was feeling sick these past few days, they were devastated by the horror they witnessed. Colin's was now an amalgamation of clumps of flesh and torn tissue held together by little more than fragments of broken bone. Upon further investigation, authorities concluded that Colin's body was consumed in small increments, as the culprit likely returned to feast upon Colin's remains no less than 3 times. Efforts were made to find the bear responsible for Colin's death. Eventually, a bear with a bullet wound matching that of the caliber used by Colin's rifle was subdued and later put down. Upon further examination, however, it was determined that this bear was in fact not the one responsible for Colin's death, as no traces of Colin's remains were ever found inside the bear's body. Humans must take every necessary precaution to protect themselves when camping out in the open. Wild animals such as black bears might seem docile, but they are still dangerous predators that should be respected and treated with caution. Colin's story is a tragic reminder of what can happen when we let our guard down and fail to take the necessary precautions. We must always be aware of our surroundings and take steps to ensure our safety, especially when entering the territory of fearsome predators such as bears. Nevertheless, while we can't save the ones we have lost, we can always aspire to protect the ones we haven't, and hopefully spare them the unimaginable horror of witnessing their final affliction.